How does Alessio? Hope you're well. So very interesting situation here on Bitcoin. As you can see, Bitcoin just recently, today, as a matter of fact, you can see on this bar, slammed right into the 50,000 level, as you can see here, and broke below it. You can see a massive spike move here in Bitcoin. So far, it's bouncing back up a little bit here today, but essentially it broke the 50K psychological support. So in this video, we're going to take a look here on this chart, especially this chart here on the weekly time frame, and explain what likely is happening here and what this potentially could mean for Bitcoin for the remainder of this year. Join me. All right, guys, welcome back. Now, in a few moments, I'm going to take a look here at this important weekly time frame chart of Bitcoin and explain what this potentially means, because Bitcoin has now broken the 21 weekly moving average and the 34 moving average as well on the weekly time frame. So we'll cover that in a few minutes. But before that, let me first of all mention this, that although I thought it was possible for Bitcoin to perhaps pull back to the prior highs, these are the prior September highs, and this red line you're seeing here is the 61.8% Fibonacci level at 50,800. So I thought it was possible that Bitcoin may test those levels. For example, again, this range you're seeing here between the September highs to the 50,800, 61.8% Fibonacci level, but I did not anticipate a move, a sudden break of the 50K level. That actually was a surprise to me. But in any case, it has happened now, and it's worth talking about. So now that we've broken that 50,000 level, it does mean a few things. Some things have changed now. Firstly, because we've now broken 50K, that means our seasonal year-end target, which we had based on seasonality of Bitcoin, the Halloween effect. So we had a year-end target for Bitcoin based on seasonal factors of about $80,000 to $85,000 by the end of this year. I think we can forget about that now because I think that's looking extremely unlikely. So I'm not expecting that anymore because Bitcoin has now broken below the 50K level. And by the way, as you know, some people were saying that Bitcoin was going to go over 100K by the end of this year, and we disagreed with that. We said it's not going to happen. That's extremely unlikely. Now let's go back to this chart here on the daily time frame. Notice Bitcoin broke below the 200 SMA, the green line. It spiked below it. You can see a massive spike, and so far it's managed to recover back above it. You can see a bit of a bounce going on right now. Let me just go back on the 15-minute chart, the 15-minute. You can see we've had a little bit of a bounce. So spike below, and then so far we're bouncing back up. I think potentially we might see this bounce continue. And usually in the past, whenever Bitcoin does something like this, typically when Bitcoin breaks a key level, like for example a 200 SMA, something like that, and has a spike move like this, a spike bar like that, typically, usually, that signals capitulation. Now, I'm not saying necessarily this is capitulation because Bitcoin has to get above resistance to prove that that's the case, but it is an interesting pattern we're developing here on the chart. But let me also go back to the weekly time frame now. This is a weekly chart. Now, this is very important. This, what we're seeing on the chart of Bitcoin, is extremely crucial. See, a lot of people actually ignore the weekly time frame, and that's a big mistake. Notice on the higher time frame, the weekly chart, look what's happened here. Bitcoin made an all-time high. As you can see, it took out the all-time highs of the spring, the April highs here. So you can see it took that level out and then reversed and went back below the 21 weekly moving average. And when that happens, that typically signifies a false break. And a false break, as I'm sure you know, is the same thing as a bull trap. And here's something else. You will notice that Bitcoin has now dropped and fallen below its 21 weekly moving average, the blue line you see on my chart. So it's now below the 21 weekly average and the 34. But more importantly, the more important one here is our 21 weekly moving average. It's very important because you see, statistically, whenever Bitcoin drops below its 21 weekly average, it's a huge warning. It's a danger sign. You see, if Bitcoin did something like this, take a look. This is the bullish uptrend from 2016 all the way to 2017. Now, pullbacks are perfectly normal. Pullbacks at a 21 weekly EMA, like you see here. Pullbacks are perfectly normal and healthy, as long as they stay above it, as long as Bitcoin does not close below it. For example, notice back over here, Bitcoin did drop below both the 21 and the 34 EMA on the weekly time frame, but it managed to recover and bounce back above it very quickly. As you can see here, that was back in 2016 there. So that was a good sign. It was a healthy pullback, provided it goes back above it. Same thing happened over here. So let me just mark this one. There's one here. And also there's another one over here. Then there's one over here in 2017. You can see a pullback, nice pullback to the 21 EMA, and then bounced above it here. And then again, pull back to the 21 EMA, again bounced above it here, and then a pull back to the 21 EMA here, and then managed to bounce nicely here. And then again over here, notice back in 2017, okay? And then it bounced back up. So pullbacks to the 21 weekly EMA are okay, provided we see a very quick bounce within the next couple of weeks. But notice something. When Bitcoin does this at an all-time high, when Bitcoin falls into trouble and falls and closes below the 21 weekly EMA near an all-time high, like for example, this was back in 2017, when Bitcoin falls below the 21 weekly EMA, same goes the 34 EMA, near an all-time high, that usually signals weakness. That's a negative sign. It's a sign of trouble and potential danger. So it's usually not a good sign. It's a negative sign when Bitcoin does this at an all-time high. We know what happened next. It fell into a bear market, as you can see here. By the way, take a look at this. This is back in the year 2013 and 14. Now, notice in the year 2013, Bitcoin did drop below its 21 weekly EMA. But here's the good sign. Notice it quickly managed to recover and get back above it again. Okay, that's something we want to see. If Bitcoin manages to do this very quickly by the end of next week, then potentially danger could be averted. But look at this. In 2014, it did this one more time. In 2014, it dropped below and closed below its 21 weekly EMA. And again, it did this near an all-time high. And when Bitcoin fails to hold on to the bounce, when Bitcoin fails to hold on to those gains, the bounce, it then runs into trouble. As you can see here, then it opened up for a major bear market, as we know. The point is that Bitcoin has now dropped below the 21 weekly EMA. And notice it's right now holding above the weekly 50 simple moving average. That white line or gray line you see on my chart, that gray line is the weekly 50 simple moving average and is holding above it so far. So far, so good. I mean, it's not all bad. But here's the big question. The question is, can Bitcoin quickly recover, like you saw here back in 2016, 2017? Can Bitcoin quickly recover and go back above its 21 weekly EMA by the end of next week? It has to do this very quickly in order for the bull market to continue. Okay, so if Bitcoin, okay, it's an if, but if Bitcoin can quickly recover from these levels, by the way, it has to also stay above this level too. All right, if Bitcoin is going to remain in an uptrend and not fall into a bear market, it needs to remain above this level, 40,750. Okay, so if Bitcoin can remain above this support of 40,750, if for example we see a green bar by the end of next week, if we can see something like this going back above 52,700, then the odds actually could increase for a bull market continuation. All right, guys. So remember, if Bitcoin is going to prove to us, and it has to persuade us that it's not going to fall into a bear market, it has to stay above this support of 40,750, and we need to see a green bar very quickly, at least within the next couple of weeks, going back above this level that you're seeing here. 52,708 approximately there. Okay, so if Bitcoin can manage to do that very quickly in the next couple of weeks, okay, if we see, for example, a bar that goes back above that resistance and then stays above it, so we need to stay above that level, by the way. So what we're saying is Bitcoin needs to get back above the 21 weekly EMA there, and I would say that level as well, that resistance at the prior September high. So if Bitcoin can get back above that resistance of 52,708 very quickly in the next couple of weeks and not fall below this level you're seeing here, 40,750, then the odds could favor a potential bull market continuation. And then we might see further gains by potentially next year. Okay, but let me also mention this, guys. This is very important. If Bitcoin fails to do this, if Bitcoin does not do that, and let's say we break the support, if we see a move below the support of 40,750, then guys, that means we're very likely falling into a bear market. Because a break of this support, this blue line you're seeing here, 40,750, if this level breaks, then the odds increase for a potential bear market or perhaps a bigger correction, a much more deeper correction. Now let me say this, usually at this point I get these imbeciles, these completely ignorant, uneducated and imbecile trolls who say, oh, Alessio is saying Bitcoin is going to go down and Bitcoin is going to go up. So no matter what happens, they can be right. Okay, that's completely ignorant and stupid because we don't know which path Bitcoin is going to decide here. Again, as I mentioned, usually when Bitcoin falls below the 21 weekly EMA here, near an all-time high, that's not been a good sign for Bitcoin going forward. Usually in the past, it's seen more downside action. What I'm saying here, we need to wait for confirmation. Bitcoin has to confirm what it wants to do here. So as I'm sure you know, guys, because I know you're very intelligent and sophisticated people, you know that in technical analysis, we always have to measure possibilities, probabilities, and risks. There are no such thing as certainties. So we don't know which path Bitcoin is going to choose here. What I'm saying is, these are our key levels. The key levels are, firstly, this level, this support, 40,750, and the resistance, the key level here is the 21 weekly moving average, and the prior high, just approximately near 52,700. So if Bitcoin can break this resistance you're seeing here, this gray-white line here, if Bitcoin can quickly recover within the next couple of weeks and get back above that line, this resistance you're seeing here, then trouble could be averted and we could potentially continue the uptrend higher, okay? We need to wait for confirmation of that, all right? But what I'm saying is, if Bitcoin fails to do this, if Bitcoin fails to bounce and get back above that level, I think actually a bounce is likely. I think we could see a temporary bounce here. Usually after drops like this, after volatile moves like this, usually you see bounces, usually typically see a reversion to the mean, a bounce. We've already seen a bit of a bounce already, as you can see here, okay? But what I'm saying is Bitcoin has to stay above this level to avoid a bear market, okay? Any move or a close, what I mean by close, I mean on the candle bar. If the price bar drops and closes below 40,750, that's an if, by the way. I got to be honest with you here. I think it's less likely for Bitcoin to break this key support here of 40,750. So I'm going to give Bitcoin the benefit of the doubt. But again, guys, if Bitcoin does break that support you're seeing here, the blue line, and falls below it, then the odds of a bear market increases and we might fall into a multi-month downtrend. By the way, if not a bear market, then potentially a much bigger or a deeper correction in the price of Bitcoin. All right, guys, I hope this video helps, by the way. So those are our key levels. Watch those key levels on the chart, the ones I just mentioned here today in the video. Again, it's not all bad news for Bitcoin. Again, it's not completely bad news because you can see, again, as I mentioned before, usually when Bitcoin spikes like this, you see spikes like this of a break of support. Usually spikes like this can often signal potential capitulation or at least some kind of reversion to the mean or some kind of strong bounce, but we'll have to wait and see. The key point is, let's see if our key levels hold. That's our resistance, and our support is 40,750. Let's see which path Bitcoin wants to choose. By the way, guys, let me just say 3 things before I finish the video. Some of you probably wondering, well, why would a break of this blue line, this support, be signaling a bear market? Why would that be a bear market? Because here's the thing, guys. If Bitcoin, it's an if, but if Bitcoin does break that support at the 40,750 level, if that happens, it's breaking market structure. Remember, guys, whenever price breaks market structure on several key time frames, because as you know, that level is a structural support on the daily time frame and the weekly time frame. Let's go on the weekly chart. You can see on the weekly chart that is also structural support, as you can see there at the blue line. That's why whenever price breaks market structure, it's a huge warning sign of a potential bear market and a likely downtrend. Now, Bitcoin hasn't done this at the moment, not yet anyway. All I'm saying is keep an eye on that level, because if that level breaks, then the odds favor a potential bear market. I personally think it's less likely for Bitcoin to break that level, but we shall see. We shall see. I could be wrong about that. By the way, let me say another thing. The second thing is this. Usually when Bitcoin sees volatile moves to the downside like this, and breaks psychological support, it's a bad sign also. It's a negative sign for the stock market. Usually Bitcoin moves sometimes ahead of the stock market. So we shall see what happens this week. This downward move in Bitcoin might be signaling potential weakness in the stock markets too. Let's see what happens this week. And the final thing I want to mention is tomorrow in the Sunday members video, I'm going to cover the Elliott wave counts, the potential Elliott wave counts on Bitcoin as well. So join me on that. Thank you very much indeed, guys. Bye for now.